detective thrill me.
Thanks for joining us again for another episode. A little something different this time. Jared and I are here to look at the Scream franchise and rate it from best to worst. But we've also got a special guest. It took us a while to set this up and then another fucking 45 minutes to actually get in touch with him. But we've got one half of the Nostalgia Be Damned podcast team here. Brandon, how you going, mate?
Hey, good to have me here. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, good, mate. It's good to have you here. Someone with a bit of sense. After 200 episodes, we finally got someone with a little bit of sense.
I don't know about that, but I'm glad to be here.
Excellent, mate. Well, it's good to have you here. So basically, we're going to do very similar to what we did with Halloween, which was a while back now, but we essentially ran through the franchise and gave it our thoughts from best to worst. We're also going to cover off on some of our favourite parts, like favourite kill, favourite character, and least favourite. So, we're just going to dive straight into it here. The first thing I wanted to ask with regards to everyone here was, what's their history with this franchise? And, you know, from my point of view, I was a big slasher fan in the 80s, and when this movie came out in 1996... it was great to have I personally feel it's the best slasher movie of all time, bar Halloween. And I had a fantastic experience in the cinema with it. It was a full house and everybody was into it, and it really put it up another notch for me. And as far as the franchise is concerned, obviously I saw all four in the cinema. Varying degrees of quality, we'll get to that, but yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of what your take on the franchise was, Brandon, for you personally.
This is a movie that came out when I was only 5 years old. I was born early 90s, and this was the one that I watched the most after Halloween. And when those are the two that you watch the most, you kind of get spoiled into thinking all slasher movies are of that quality. And then you get into some of the deeper dive stuff, which I did, later on in my life, back to the 80s and all that stuff. And I gotta say, Scream genuinely maybe in my top 10 films of all time. Like, it is one of my most watched movies by far. And I would agree with you, next to Halloween, it's the best slasher, which is funny to say because it satirizes the genre so much.
Yeah.
But overall, let's say this is, right in my wheelhouse, one of those meta movies that this franchise, it's interesting because it's covered decades at this point. And if you look at slasher franchises in general, I'd say quality, all four films, even the worst of them, it's probably one of the best, if not the best, for quality slasher series out there.
No doubt.
But it's interesting to see how it's evolved over the decades from the 90s to the early 2000s, and then with that new one in 2011, how different that kind of felt, at least for me, and we'll get into our feelings obviously in a bit, but
sure.
Overall as a franchise, one of my favorites.
Excellent. Jared, similar thoughts on
that? Yeah, I think it was it Boxing Day where you suggested we'd go and see it? You'd already seen it.
I'd already seen it, yeah.
And I was probably thinking I'll just humour the silly prick. I went along with it, and yeah, it was just, probably wouldn't be a stretch to call it a life changer. Like, I was just gripped the whole time in the cinema, and then of course from that point on you just delve deeper and deeper into the horror, and as Brandon said, you get spoiled if you see this first. But it also kind of challenged other horror movies to get better. Like, you couldn't just roll out the same old silly things anymore. So yeah, I was just absolutely wrapped up in the series. Like, Scream 2 posters on the wall, school books covered in slasher movie things.
Yeah.
Not surprisingly, the girls weren't interested.
Not a girlfriend to be seen. But you know what? It was also that period too where the excitement level for the sequel was really high. Like, I remember thinking, holy shit, if this is anywhere near as good as the first one, it's going to be an absolute winner. So, I mean, obviously we've come a long way with films and everything these days, and I don't get as excited to go to the cinema anymore. But at that time, because I'd had such a great experience with it, and slasher movies were back, because I think I Know What You Did Last Summer came out not long after that.
Yep.
So I was in the cinema every couple of months, and there was a slasher film. I thought, fuck, we're back to the 80s almost.
Yeah.
And so when part two came out, I was just absolutely in lather. I couldn't wait to get to see part 2. So I guess it for me it sort of created that excitement for a horror film that I hadn't had in probably forever. I don't reckon I'd ever felt that way about a horror film and its subsequent sequel.
It was one of the first times, too, I think a script leak really changed the outcome of a movie. I remember reading a bunch around that time, because this is when the internet's getting into its, asshole days of people trying to ruin things for everyone. And, I remember that script leak got out, and it forced them to change or rewrite in production, and I think that kind of started the secrecy around all these projects. And you're right, to that extent, I couldn't remember the last time anyone was that excited for a horror movie, because at this point in time, you're getting, Halloween Curse of Michael Myers and Jason part. Well, this must have been Jason Goes to Hell time a little after that.
Yeah.
So
actually, that was 93, wasn't it?
Early 90s, yeah.
Some of the shit that we'd gone through, I guess, prior, it made it easy to satirise it, the slasher film, because at that stage we were in hell. Literally. We were actually in hell with slasher films. So it was, for me, it was kind of like that feeling of, wow, they actually got one of them right. Like, beyond right. It was really, really, really well made. And I think that's hard to sort of come to these days, because there's so much out there. It's all on streaming, you don't go to the cinema to see a slasher film that often. Like, I felt a little bit the same with Halloween last year.
Yeah, this new one.
Yeah,
Yep.
I thought they did an absolutely fantastic job with that, and I was really excited for it, and I'm kind of really excited for Halloween Kills, which is coming up. So it's a little bit the same, but I felt Scream was kind of like, because it was at the top of its game and it was the best slasher movie I'd seen in a long time, it's possibly not going to get replicated. I'm not going to feel that way again.
Halloween's definitely the biggest buzz I've had for a sequel in a long time. So
yeah. And touching on what you said earlier about how horror movies couldn't really stoop to their, same old tricks again after Scream got released, it seemed like the last time I felt that was maybe, I remember leaving Cabin in the Woods and thinking, oh, well, they can't go back to those old tricks. And then I think it was a month later, the Evil Dead remake came out. I'm like, oh, well, no shit, I guess I can. I'm still into it, never mind. But
yeah, and look, let's just quickly, I'll run quickly through some box office on the box office numbers on this franchise. Basically, the series in total has made $604 million worldwide, against a budget total of about 120. So pretty good bang for your buck. Both 3 and 4 cost $40 million, which is strange to think that the first two cost so much less and made so much more. It's kind of an indication of the qualities. The first film topped it with 171 worldwide, and the fourth is the lowest grossing with 97. So again,
wow,
just that kind of fall off. I guess it's inevitable, but I think we'll get to the fact that the quality does fall. Just a bit of cast and crew, because all 4 films are basically made by the same people. They're all directed by Wes Craven. They're all written by Kevin Williamson, except number 3, which is written by a guy by the name of Aaron Kruger. And I actually read something today saying that he was actually brought back into part 4.
Oh,
when
okay.
Kevin Williamson got the shits with Miramax, they brought him back to polish it up. So, I mean, Wes Craven says that there wasn't that much done to it, but
I think people at Miramax should have watched Scream 3 before making that move.
well, mate, that was 11 years later. They had forgotten all about it. Anyway,
Kruger's also responsible for past Gem reindeer games, if I remember correctly.
And a couple of Transformers pictures, so his resume stinks.
The guy hates movies, clearly.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And they all star Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette. All right, let's get to the ratings now, okay? Starting at the bottom. Brandon, if you want to go first, what is your least favourite of the series and why?
So 3 and 4, I wrestle with constantly. I honestly, for the longest time, would have told you, had you asked me this when we first talked about doing this years ago or whatever, I would have said Scream 3 was the worst. I gotta say, after rewatching 4, I think I might put that a little bit below Scream 3. I think 4 is a little worse. And I know,
Big one.
I know. I feel bad for saying that, but I feel like the fourth one, other than a few key scenes, is completely undone by its finale. I feel like the characters, other than Hayden Panettiere, are just loathsome for the most part, or none of them have the character or the energy that these characters in the first two especially brought. The third characters aren't much better, but I feel like the third one at least was a natural extension of where they wanted to go with the story. You have the first one set in high school, second one set in college, and then the third one, because I guess it's set so steeped in Hollywood and movie making, it kind of makes sense for them to go this way. But for the fourth one, they really are just stuck with the reboot. They're trying to remake, and so it's really just feels so reminiscent of that first one, but not nearly as good for me. But I'm interested to see kind of your highs and lows of that one specifically, because at least the third one feels like a Scream movie, despite all the bullshit logic and terrible plotting of that movie. I think the characters at least feel the same, and in the fourth one, they don't get as much to do, and we're saddled with these other teenagers that I just don't really like.
Yeah, look, I had the same problem that you had. I wrestled hard with this because I would have told you exactly the same. But I actually watched 4 again this morning.
Same.
And the reason being is because I was like, is 4 the worst? Is 4 actually the worst? Because I remember seeing it in the cinema and just going, fuck this sucks. And I was absolutely ropeable after I walked out of 4.
Yes.
And I don't know why, because
I was sitting next to it the whole way.
It's the 4th film in a franchise. It was already on the down.
I was copying all the...
Right.
I was blowing up.
through you were just...
But after watching 4, I think they look, it's not good. 4 is not good either. But I think they kind of got a bit back on a better stable ground by going back to the college kids, away from Hollywood, because I actually found the opposite with the Hollywood one. I felt with all the, working with all these actors and, this Stab 4 or whatever it was, Stab 3, it didn't work. It felt like too removed from the other two films, because they were both set obviously in college, in high school and college. And 3, the machinations around who did it, the fact that they're all connected to this Roman Bridger character, I was just like, what the fuck are we talking about? And that voice modulator that mimics everybody's voice. Where can I get one of them?
That Star Trek device, that is
I remember
completely
sitting there
unbelievable.
thinking, because that is actually that is actually a major plot point. If you don't have that, you lose certain parts of the plot, and to have a major plot point with something that I'm assuming doesn't exist. I'm assuming it doesn't exist in reality. It was just ridiculous, and Patrick Dempsey seems to be there for no reason.
Detective Red Herring.
Yeah, and I read something saying that they'd actually hadn't even bothered to wrap up the bloke's story initially. And the producers said, oh shit, we're going to bring him back and wrap it up because we don't know what's going on. So I just felt 3 was so far away, nothing really worked. And for me personally, looking back at 3, because they trot out the rules, and one of them is anybody can die. And it's like, no, they can't. You know that you're not going to kill the key people. But I would have, if it was me, the opening kill would have been Dewey and Gale dying, and that brings Sydney out of hiding. But I think they might have been caught because Neve Campbell wasn't in it as much as she basically said, I'm only going to do a certain amount. And so that hurt the script, I think. But yeah, I'm not a fan of 3 at all. Jared?
Yeah, I watched part 4 again this morning as well, and
it's been a rough morning.
Quite honestly, I think it's because for so long I've laid the boot into Scream 4 and just remember that terrible cinema experience of watching it. But I watched it this morning and I was like, wow, this is nowhere near as bad as 3. Like, I don't know, just this time around when I watched it, I was like, yeah, there's things I still really can't go for in it. But 3 is just... Like, some of the things that happen, it's like Aaron Kruger hadn't watched the other movies in the series. Like the house getting blown up. Who comes to a slasher movie and watch someone get disintegrated in a fucking house that blows up? And the part where Sydney gets the killer gets Sydney to pat herself down with a metal detector. Like, what are we doing here? And then as you said, you chuck that on top of the worst killer reveal in a series. Yeah, it's just really.
And at one point, isn't he found dead? And I checked his pulse.
Yeah, she checked his pulse.
Checked his pulse. There's one shot of like a dummy's head getting sawed off later on where Gale, I think, falls into it, and I'm convinced maybe that's supposed to be his prop body, but I have no idea. That's the most realistic fake body in the history
I was
of
thinking
cinema.
the exact same thing. I thought, did she just bump into that body that she found before? Because she looks at it really, it's like she stares at it, and it's like nothing. Like, oh yeah.
But I just want to know, how did you check his pulse? Like, were you doing it correctly?
He was doing that. He took that medication, I guess, that Jigsaw had taken to slow his heart rate there, and then lay in the middle of that floor for a couple hours. Yeah. Also, 3, that whole whoever smells the gas scene exploding. There's so many things that has to go right for that kill to even work. The guy has to walk back in like an asshole and then try to find a lighter. He must have stashed a lighter to do this. No one the whole time's been like, "Do you smell gas?"
I can tell you, if it was like our current situation this morning, the fax machine wouldn't have even worked. The kid would have been there going, "Oh, fucking hell, let's bought another brand of fax machine."
Also, who smells the gas, mate, in this room after a bad curry?
Just ridiculous.
Everyone smelled the gas.
The other thing is, I've never felt Patrick Warburton was sort of unwelcome in a movie until I watched it again. I'm like, even he sticks out like a sore thumb. It's just nothing about it really. I think the only thing I enjoyed was Parker Posey and her doing a take on Gale Weathers throughout it, like having the two Gales going back and forth at each other. I did sort of like that. And there was a couple of scenes, like when Sydney goes back into the recreation of her house, and they sort of recreate the scene of being chased up the stairs, but then it leads to nothing. A couple of things were all right, but just Ghostface didn't feel like Ghostface. The voice changer was ridiculous. The killer was ridiculous. So yeah, I think that's got to be mine.
Yeah.
Doesn't Ghostface have like a dead relative's voice on there at some point?
Yeah.
Does he have Sydney's mother's voice or some insanity like that?
And then we keep having those scenes of the ghostly mother at the window and stuff like that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's. I forgot. Oh yeah. Again, it's effectively shot. Like Wes Craven in all these movies, he's a good director, and he can even turn some of this shit into at least watchable. But
At least Craven, even at his worst, is a competent director. Like, he's not going to cock this stuff up, but you can tell it's not as well directed as the first two. The first two, he actually gets mileage out of atmosphere, and some of the scares really work. And the Ghostface voice on the phone in the first two is really creepy.
Yeah.
In the others, it's just done because it was in the first two films. That's all.
It's like one of those Mission Impossible scenes, but with a voice instead of the mask. Like Mission Impossible, where they keep removing masks, and is it that person? Is it? But it's with a voice. Like you don't. It was just silly. I didn't like it.
And I'm wondering how he's keeping that thing in his mask, in front of his mouth. It must be, because there's times he's talking out loud with that thing going.
There's parts where he actually, the voice changes mid-conversation, and he's not sitting there going, "Sydney, it's me, mummy." No, it's not. It's me, the killer. He's actually just standing there, and the voice is changing. Like,
oh man,
crazy.
Look, 3 is my least favourite.
Yeah,
but I'll come to 4 because that's my second least favourite.
Sure.
4 at least had some of those ideas were okay. I like the idea of, okay, you go away for 11 years, you come back, and remakes are in. And so they kind of they kind of trade a little bit on the remakes. They go really close to making the ending. They could have done something really cool with the ending. They don't quite get there, but I did like the idea of 15 minutes of fame. Basically I'd kill for it, and that's kind of what people today are into. Maybe not necessarily killing for it specifically, but they will do anything. They'll make up stories. They'll create fake lives. They'll so it does kind of dovetail into that kind of nicely. But the lows of 4, they are probably the lowest. I mean, the whole fuck Bruce Willis.
See, I love him getting stabbed in the head. I'm like, holy shit, that came out of nowhere. And then him, wandering around.
I'm
gonna go out with a quip.
And then also there's the other one that says, he says to the killer, I'm gay, if that means anything.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's just fucking stupid.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about the fourth one and the third one specifically. More so, I think, in the third one is that the rules just don't make sense, and they give almost no examples to back anything up. Like the first two, they explain like this happens in this movie, and that's why that rule exists. But in the third one, it's just all bets are off. Pretty much, I guess, is their main rule. Anyone can die, even you, Sid. And then this fourth one, the character doesn't die because he's gay. That's at one point said, and I can't think of many movies that follow that logic. I just don't. I don't know where they're pulling from.
Well, the first one had a succinct set of rules that made sense. Like, the whole idea is, if I'll be right back, you won't come back, all that sort of stuff. And they kept them very simplified into what slasher movies were. And it kind of skewed the slasher movie really well. It took what you would get in a slasher film and just tweaked it enough to give you something new. 2 took it in the same direction. I still felt that 2... some of those rules didn't necessarily, because they say it's bigger and gorier and that, and I was like, well, not really. But they still were in that ballpark. They were still in the same sort of ballpark as the first one. Simple rules that we could understand. But 3 and 4 just got fucking lost in this really ridiculous kind of trying to satirise slasher movies even deeper. And I guess you had to mine a bit deeper to change what you were going to do, but it didn't work. So in a way, the first 2 films would have capped the series entirely, really. If you look at it, that could have been the way to finish it. But they just couldn't help themselves. And money, when you make movies for, the first one was made for $14 million and it makes $200 million, you're obviously going to go ahead and make more. So
I disagree in the sense that I'd be happy to watch a Scream movie every year if they wanted to make one.
I know. I'm not saying I wouldn't.
That's the thing. Yeah, me too. I love the character of Ghostface too much.
Are you serious? If they'd have whipped out Scream 5 in 2012, I would after pissing and moaning about 4.
See, that's the
I'd
thing.
be
We
straight
look back
there.
and say, they could have left it after 1 and 2, but I don't want them to. I want them to keep on churning this shit out.
I guess Kevin Williamson, I think, with 3, he didn't really provide a lot. I think he provided like a treatment, and I believe a lot of it was different to what they ended up getting.
I hope so.
And then he wasn't available to provide the script, so they went to someone else. And I think they might have jettisoned a hell of a lot of it, the treatment. So, in a way, but then that doesn't really explain much of how he came back for 4, and it's still pretty average.
Yeah. Well, so my biggest, I guess, qualm about this whole movie, the last act, I like where it leads. I like the scene with, Kirby, Hayden Panettiere, trying to rattle off the remake titles. I love that whole bit. And then when she goes to untie Rory fucking Culkin, when they do the reveal that it's these 2, the most unlikely killers out of any of these movies by far. Even the reveal in the third one where it's a fucking plastic mannequin or he somehow held his pulse rate, I still think it's more believable than either of these 2 killing anyone in this movie, because they're just Emma Roberts spewing off all this stuff. Don't you get it? And she's yelling like a teenage. Oh my god. I can watch her throwing herself into mirrors and shit for days. I love that old bit. That's great.
When I was watching that today and I saw her do that, I was laughing my head off, but then I thought, this actually gets the commentary on celebrity and stuff a little bit right, because she's she does that to herself, and then Dewey says to her, "Oh, you're alive. That's all that matters," or whatever. Talking about her 15 minutes of fame almost. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So they got a little bit of the commentary right in that one, but as you said, the characters were just loathsome. Like that bell end with the friggin' camera on his head the whole time, and Rory. When he goes, I'm the Randy, her boyfriend too. He goes, I'm the Randy, and the whole time I was like, yeah, but we liked Randy. I don't like you at all. Her boyfriend, what's his name? Trevor. Trevor. What a jackass.
There's some absolute idiots in that in 4 in terms of
Kirby and the old characters were really the only ones you liked.
Yeah. But also coming back to 3 with regards to Randy, I felt they got that wrong.
Yeah, that was
You
bad.
didn't need him. He was already dead. Like, you know, he was already dead, and he's allegedly shot this videotape.
Yeah.
That just happens.
Jamie Kennedy needs to keep those lights on in his apartment, so he's calling up West for a favor.
Yeah.
There, but he had Malibu's Most Wanted coming up here, so yeah, and Son of the Mask, so he's got to get his royalties.
Writing on the wall. It said, "Yeah, Wes, come on, Wes."
Yeah, he said a rough cut of Son of the Mask and went, oh shit, I need another job.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't show up. I'm surprised he didn't show up on like a zip drive or something for the 4th one coming back with.
Actually, I would have copped that more, probably. I probably would have copped that more.
Yeah,
It's
then
just-
these two and their film class thing. Yeah,
Jesus.
But yeah, you also nailed like the fact that the rules just don't apply. I know you, Adam, said that even part 2, you know, some of the rules don't hit, but they do say, you know, it's got to be bigger and gorier. Well, you think about something like Halloween 2, and that does make sense. But in this one, they were just spouting nonsense. Like, basically, they took this, remakes don't really play by any rules, and then just took that as a license to just make them up or something.
Yeah.
to not give a shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And yeah, that rule doesn't make sense at all. I mean, you watch any of the remakes of any of the slasher films from the 80s, you know, they've taken a certain tact and they've gone a certain way, and there are certain rules to how they do these things.
Yeah. The only one that worked was Sydney at the end.
Yeah.
First rule of the remakes.
Oh yeah, you don't fuck with the original, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was okay. But yeah, 3 and 4, it's a kind of a, as we've said before,
It's a tuffle.
your dick in a vice or in a blender.
Yeah.
It's kind of a,
Yeah.
it's kind of take your pick, really.
Yeah, do I want Scott Foley yelling about his mom, or do I want Emma Roberts getting shocked in the head with those like at the hospital thing, like clear, what's your last words or some shit? It's like, no, don't do this.
I said to Adam this morning, I think the one thing Scream 4 did right that probably nudged it ahead, just a little bit ahead of Scream 3 for me, was I actually really liked Dewey and Gale in that one for some reason. Like, Gale is just peak Gale when she tells that deputy your lemon squares taste like ass and walks out and she's
yeah.
talking to the kid with the camera and tells him shut the fuck up or something like that. Like, it was just kind of like, yeah, this is what I want from her.
Yeah, it was a bit of,
Yeah, David Arquette's definitely the worst in number 3
Oh, yeah.
by far.
but you know, like he's not the best actor at the best of times, is he? And he kind of phones that one in. And to me, those two characters are actually the worst in 3 because they were put front and centre and they shouldn't have been. And in
True.
4, they step back a little bit because Sydney's back and you've got all the young characters, so they've got less time.
Yeah, they're kind of just driving the mystery part of it.
Yeah, and that kind of works. Whereas 3, they became the key characters. And
4 also has a lot more gore, I think. Little better kills than 3, because 3 is all the same, like stabbed in the back or
Yeah.
stabbed here. Like, it very, very. I mean, the series never has been, you know, all about the kills and trying to make
Or
them creative.
blow up
But
the house.
we'll blow it out. Fuck. I'm really going to lay a slippery to that later. All right, well,
oh
look.
my gosh,
Obviously, part 2 is obviously second best. I look at part 2 a little bit like something like Halloween 2, and not in terms of quality, because Scream 2 is much better in terms of a film. But for the first hour, it is on par with the original. It is on par with
I'd
the
say so,
original for
yeah.
me. Up to the death of Randy, it's really very much on par with the first one. So it feels like kind of like companion piece. You know, you could put them back to back, and you'd be
Yep.
right there. My problems with it are the second half. And that is, although the ending is like Debbie Sultan, what's his name?
Mickey.
Mickey, right? Yeah.
They're fucking way over the top at the end. Gale and Dewey become more to the fore again, and again, I'm not as big a fan of them. I think it's a personal thing. I'm just not a fan of their characters as much, and it's not very suspenseful. There's a scene in the car that I hate. I absolutely hate that sequence. It goes way
Oh,
too
yeah.
long. It should be short and sweet. You know, it should be about a minute where you're trying to get over the top of him and you think he's going to come alive, but it goes on for about 3 minutes or something. It's like, oh, Wes, you know, surely you knew better than this.
Yeah.
But I must say, I do like the ending. I think the ending actually strangely makes sense. It didn't at the time. I remember thinking it was kind of shit, but looking at it again, it it actually makes some pretty good sense. So I do enjoy it. I just feel that you can see a couple of little bits starting to creep in that ended up turning up in the later films. You know, the quality sort of
Sure.
dipped.
It's got a great opening sequence, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
I love the opening in the theater.
Yep.
Although I'd never want to watch a movie with these assholes. So
No.
70 people in Scream's costumes screaming during the middle of the movie. And
Like,
shit.
sit down. I thought I watched the bloody thing.
You're like, come on, I can't hear a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the opening scene is awesome. I think the sequence with Cece, Sarah Michelle
Oh, yep,
Gellar,
yep.
that is excellent. And there are a number of really good scenes. So that's why it feels very similar. And you know, my saying it's like Halloween 2, when I watched Halloween, we watched Halloween 2 and did it for the podcast, the first hour was, or the first 45 minutes, I loved it because it was like, it's like we're still part of the first film. And so this is the same thing for me. You're a bit higher on Scream 2 than me, though, aren't
Yeah, I remember when I watched it when I was younger, and it was just Scream was just everything for me. I was even then, I got the sense that the end kind of let it down. But as I got older and watched a few more movies and sort of, you know, got to think about things a bit more, I actually really love the ending. Like, Debbie Salt, I always had this problem with Debbie Salt, but now I'm like, she's the reverse Mrs. Voorhees. Like, she's taking the thing from the original that they even reference in the original and then taking it to the sequel to put your twist on it. And when I look at her in that scene, she even talks a bit like Mrs. Voorhees. She even says things about mummy and all this sort of thing. Mickey, at the time, I was just like, you know, finding some random bloke on the internet. Now the age that we live in, as Brandon said, the internet's gone full asshole.
Yeah.
People have been, you know,
Send you a fucking cesspool.
yeah, it's strange people have found each other on the
Yeah.
internet and done this shit. So it actually got better with time. The big thing for me is why it's not as good as the original is, like you said, there's just a couple of scenes that I look at and say I don't like. As you said, the one in the car, really disliked that. The two most incompetent policemen in the series, and that's saying something given Anthony Anderson was
Adam Brody. Jesus.
so I look at that and I say, yeah, I really didn't like that. Whereas with the original, obviously, you know, there's no surprise which one's going to be on top. There's not a scene in there that I don't like. So it's because the first one set such a high bar. That's why I put this one second. But it's not by much. Like, it's actually gotten a lot better with time. Almost every time I watch it, I find something more to appreciate a little bit. Although in that
I
opening
agree.
sequence, that really good sequence, I still don't like the whispering in the toilet stall. If I hear someone whispering in the toilet stall, I'm not going, let me have a listen to this. I'm sitting there going, fuck, I'm going to finish up and get out of here. There's some weirdo whispering.
Also, there was fucking 500 people in that cinema. Now there's about 40 of them in the crapper, mate. You're not sitting there by yourself as somebody sits in the toilet whispering to themselves. So, yeah, but it is a good scene. I really do like that. And are you a fan of Scream 2, mate?
I love Scream 2. Yeah, I think it's not quite up there with the first one. I think I agree with you that there are a few scenes like the they go a bit too far into this whole drama teacher thing with the whole play acting. That the whole Greek scene. It's fine. Like, I really enjoy that. It seems like a natural progression from high school to college. It's a great setting for a slasher film, and so they set a lot of scenes there that make a lot of sense. And I do like that location, but I do think that, you know, the Jerry O'Connell scene singing in the cafeteria, the Top Gun, it's not that, like, these characters that they bring in for this one, even though they're smaller and in less doses, they're just so much more memorable than 3 and 4. Even, like, Timothy
definitely.
Olyphant, you get Jerry O'Connell, maybe because these actors went on to become bigger later on, but I just feel like the characters are so much more likable in this
Cast
one.
is pretty
Even the
stacked.
camera guy.
Yeah, he's pretty.
Yeah, the camera guy's cool.
Timothy Olyphant has a couple of really good moments. Like
Yeah.
a bit where he's sitting there with Jerry O'Connell and he starts to, you know, the Delta Lambdas are the biggest bunch of fucking, and then you hear the girls go, hey, behind you. He's like, ooh. Like, he actually gets a couple of really good moments. He
Yeah.
goes a little bit over the top towards the end, but as you said, yeah, he's a great actor, and he, you know, they're just in general a more memorable and likable group of people.
I could probably have done without Cotton Weary.
Yeah,
Like he
Oh, Cotton Weary.
Cotton
yeah.
Weary's only in it for what, maybe 2-3 scenes. So he's only in it
Yep.
for about 5 or 10 minutes, and he sort of. I understand kind of why he's there. It's another red herring to throw into the mix. You know, he's out of jail because he was exonerated.
Yeah, but they make him unhinged in every single scene.
Yeah. Every time he speaks to her, I mean, there's that sequence in the library where he fucking grabs her by the arm and starts like, and he's doing like some sort of freak in
He's
front
doing
of her.
everything
Like,
bar
oh,
facial tics and
yeah, like
it's just yeah.
you just got out of jail, mate. Keep it cool. You're fresh out of the clean, mate.
all of us to
there's
speak to
people
us.
hanging around. They want to see you. So I could have done without Cotton, but I get why he was there. It was kind of like your red herring, and in all of these films, you kind of needed it. It's that sort of Agatha Christie style. We set up 5 or 6 different possibilities, and we let you try and work it out. And so he was there, but I just felt he wasn't in it enough to. I mean, you only see him once or twice. You're not going to go, he definitely did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should have, because his character is really interesting. Like a person who gets exonerated for a crime he didn't commit, and everyone hates him for it. And then he tries. I just dislike where they go, similar to where Mickey and I guess Jill in the fourth one goes, where seeking the fame and seeking the adulation and making. But again, it makes sense for his story because he just wants to be told. I think it would have benefited if maybe they showed a couple of scenes of him in his own life, whatever he was doing, maybe perpendicular to this whole story as it's going on, to kind of tie him back in. But I do like at the end where he does have that moment of, if I kill this girl, I might be able to get that fame I'm seeking.
Yes.
But Mickey's motivation does make sense. I think the further we get from this movie, it makes so much more sense as a person who wants to blame the movies, blame the media for the violence and whatnot. And I think his motivation works more because, unlike Jill, which is sad to say in our state of, a society, but how many victims' names do you remember in these mass murders and stuff, these terrible tragedies? You always remember maybe sometimes the guy who did it or the villain. And so Mickey's motivation always kind of made more sense to me than Jill's, but I do think that Scream 2 kind of gets a little better with age.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the ending is like that, I think it definitely does. Because if that ending was different, and I'm thinking to myself, if you were going to have Cotton, maybe he could have done it, and you could have had the whole riff, kind of making a murderer style riff. He went into jail, it turned him into a bad guy, and he came out and he did it. But looking at Mickey and Debbie Salt together, and the whole idea of meeting on the internet and craving that, what they were after, it works, and it actually works more and more today than it did in 98? I think it was 1998 when the second one was made. So, it's definitely got a hell of a lot going for it in that respect. For me, the only problem is just a couple of those things, as you said. That sequence in the car is the worst scene in the entire series, I reckon.
Oh, jeez, that's a big
Really?
call. That
See,
is a
I
big
don't
call.
hate it that much. I
It
wish.
is so
I do
fucking
wish it
boring.
was quicker. I do wish it was quicker. I do love
Yeah.
that kill though when that pipe gets launched through that cop's face. It's pretty awesome.
Shit, that is.
I will say one of my favorite scenes in 2 is the scene where I don't know why they think this is the only VHS player on campus, but Dewey and Gale go to that theater, that massive theater to play this. They get hot and heavy for a minute, but I do like this there's like a maze of soundproof walls. I don't know what this location is, but it's a real good scene with Dewey outside the window trying to knock and get her attention, and his whole
That's right.
getting stabbed
Yeah.
bit. That's pretty good.
That works out
I really
really
like
well.
that.
As you said, if you can get past the fact that someone set up I don't know, they must have been playing some sort of bloody laser tag game or something in the sound, with the soundproof
Wasn't it?
walls.
Were we in DVDs by 98? It's all peddling film. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we were probably watching them, but it took a while to get to the recording on some things like
true.
that. So Joel's still using the big videotapes in the camera.
Yeah, look, that scene in itself is excellent. Dewey is basically bloody Superman. He's been stabbed about 50 times. Like, obviously they miss vital organs every time they get after him, but
Yeah, he just shakes it off now.
I mean,
He limps it off, I think, for the second, third one, and for the fourth one, he's back to being fine.
in fact, yes, he doesn't even have a limp in the fourth one, does he?
Ever in part 4.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, part 3 he does at least have a limp, and because he'd had a nerve. They got a nerve.
Yeah, get him in the nerve, yeah.
So obviously number 1 is the original. I have very little to dislike about this. There's not much that I don't like about it. I think it's got good kills. It's actually quite scary. As I said, the killer on the phone everything he says is quite menacing. There's a real kind of menace to it. Several of my favourite lines in the entire series are from this film, where he kind of rings them up and sort of gets angry with them. I think the acting's fantastic. It's probably, I like Sid the most in this one, and adding that whole thing at the start with Drew Barrymore, because you're assuming that Drew Barrymore is kind of she's your most well-known person, and the fact that they kill her to start with in such a brutal fashion, I just loved it, and it sort of sets the tone that really anyone can die. And the first one's got the luxury of having, there was no pretenses. You didn't have characters that anyone knew, so you could kill anyone. You could kill anyone you liked. So it really adds up to a just perfectly rounded slasher film. And as I said, other than Halloween, it is probably the best slasher movie I've seen. That's my personal take.
Yeah, the opening, I think the opening 8 or 10 minutes, that opening scene with Drew Barrymore, and the last 40 minutes right at the house from when they get to the party on is genuinely like the best slasher we've gotten and may ever get. That opening scene's one of the best movies in horror history by far.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a novelty having Drew Barrymore as that character, but even without her, even if it is a nobody, that scene is still really powerful, really gets you going, because it's just so well written, well directed, the score, all of it works. I'm curious what people, or I guess teenagers, think of this movie today, because I still think it holds up on just a structural level, on every level, the way it's shot, from the way it's acted, but I wonder what a kid who has seen it all since might think of it now, especially because the technology maybe seems a little outdated. But for me, the most smart thing this movie does, the most clever it ever gets, is just something so simple as there's two killers. And I don't know if it had been done before. If it had, it wasn't as popular. And so just that simple twist, man, it really completely subverts your expectations, and so it leaves everyone open to suspicion, even though some of them are hammering over your head, and you're like, there's no way it can be that person, because it's just, I remember first trying to really discover it or figure out the mystery. It's one of my favorite movie-going experiences.
Yeah.
And for me, it's something as simple as they basically run you off Billy in the first 40 minutes. They kind of just sort of say, no, it couldn't possibly be him. Look, I was in the police station. It couldn't possibly be me. That whole sequence where I was being fingerprinted. I didn't do it, and so they run you off him. But then there's that whole bit that I always remember looking back on after watching it later. They were all sitting around the fountain at school.
Yep.
And they're talking about the murder and everything of Casey Becker, and then someone asked if Stu did it, and he goes, "No, I didn't do it." And Billy looks at him and goes, "Nobody said you did."
And they have that weird stare. Yeah, you're like, "Oh wow, how did I not see this?"
Gives him kind of this look of like, basically, it's kind of like a death stare. And I was kind of, you're looking back on it, you kind of go, "Yeah, you should kind of see that," but it's so subtle that I didn't even think about it at the time. And as the movie goes on, it just pushes Billy out of the way. It sort of says, "Oh, well, Billy didn't do it. It must be someone else." And then they pull the dad out. They start saying, "Nobody's heard from Dad." And I'm thinking, fuck, it's obviously Dad. Dad's involved. I remember being in the cinema going, "Yeah, it's definitely that guy." No, not him. All right, it must be Dad then. Yeah, no, it's not him. So it really turns everything over at the end. And I remember seeing the end and thinking, what? How did we get to that? But it makes sense.
Yeah, it's genuinely one of my favorite endings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear cut, the best one in the series. Like, as I said, there's not really anything in it that I don't think works. As you said, you go into the movie, and just by the fact of having two killers, it twists every expectation we had. Like, anyone that had seen one of these movies before was just, even if you hadn't really seen a slasher, you're sitting down and your first thought is, okay, which one did it? And so, as you said, everything they did keeps everybody in the frame. You don't know who. Like, I was the same. The first time I watched it, I had no idea. I just had no idea who it was. I was the same. I was bouncing around from person to person. So getting that reveal was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And the way that they then act the scene after that, and what they're doing to each other, and the motivation and everything, it was all just awesome.
Yeah.
And then obviously when you get a bit older and you start to appreciate the subtext a little more about the commentary on the other movies, that stuff gets even better as well. The way they're talking to each other about movies not making psychos, movies just make psychos more creative, and yeah, I just love it. Even now, I can just go back and rewatch the whole thing and just be. You never get that same feeling as the first time, but it's one of those few movies that I can go back to, and even knowing every little bit and piece of what's going to happen, I'm still hooked the whole way.
Enjoy it, yeah.
Yeah.
I also just love that all that stuff about where Randy's in the video store going, yeah, if they'd have watched Prom Night, they could have saved some time.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
everybody's a suspect. And what is his comment? If you were accused of a mass murder, would you be in the horror section?
Yeah.
In the horror section. All that shit's good because it's got comedic elements, but the scary stuff is actually genuinely scary, which is very, very difficult to do. You know,
They managed to mix that black comedy with, a thriller slasher whodunit really well. And the characters of Stu and Randy, I don't know whether to laugh at them or slap the shit out of them.
Yeah.
They're so equally annoying but entertaining at the same time, both of them. That we'll get into some of our favorite kills later. But Matthew Lillard in the TV, some of that last bit there again at that house is just iconic. In the garage door, goddamn thing again, implausible, but it works. It still works.
Yeah.
Hey, what's his comment? Did you ring the police? Yeah, I did. Oh, my parents are going to be really pissed.
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me.
Yeah, that was brilliant. He
And
was
he
just,
hits him on the head with the phone.
Yeah, I mean, dick. Them stabbing each other though, it's just so
it's
brutal to
bananas.
watch, and they're insane, just insane.
And
I will
also-
say,
Go
if
for it,
I'm
Brady.
digging for anything, the few minor gripes I have with this movie are, Ghostface in aisle 3 shopping at the grocery store and him wandering around the house in mid daylight, and there's a
That's
few
right.
things. I always
Parts of
wonder.
the film. Those little bits
always
where he was
wonder-
hovering around.
I also like the one when he's sort of in the bushes where Sydney and
And he kind of goes,
yeah. I was thinking,
Yeah.
what if the neighbours are out? What if some bloke's out mowing his lawn?
what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. They really skew it that great in Scary Movie when he runs behind the tree when she's not looking or whatever.
Yeah, it's just the Billy and Stu are just, you can't compare anyone else to them. Even Stu was the sidekick.
Yeah.
He's just so quirky, and so, as you said, you don't know whether to slap him or you kind of love the performance he's given, but he's so over the top and ridiculous. But in saying that, we're still quoting those two lines. They're two of the funniest lines of the series.
I also love the fact that a lot of that is almost played for laughs. That whole bit where they finally reveal themselves and they start to stab each other and they get Sydney, and then he says it's the millennium, motives are incidental. And then Billy just goes, your slut mother was fucking my father, and he's obviously lost. He's the one who's lost the plot. He's got the motivation from somewhere else, and I really liked that. It was kind of like, no, motives are incidental. They're doing it for whatever reason, and then he just whips this out, and it takes a turn of it takes a sort of a scarier turn because it's actually got a motivation based on his family, and so I really like that because it then turns it away from the comedic elements that they were using at that point. So these are the things that I think the film has in spades that most other slashers of this period, probably in general, don't have.
The references too to movies, they're not there to be cute. Some of them serve like plot points or at least progress the story. There's that whole bit where Billy finally does reveal himself and shoots Jamie Kennedy, and there's that whole we all go a little mad sometimes. There's the whole bit at the end where it's actually scored to Halloween playing in the background that gives you some jump scares every so often. They use these. The movie's almost unimpeachable because any gripes or problems you can have with it are in direct relation to the cliches and tropes that they're trying to satirize. So
Exactly.
it's kind of hard to find any faults with it, honestly.
Yeah, and you made mention of what would the current generation think of this? 20 odd years advanced. We
Yeah.
kind of had a similar conversation about Halloween when we first started the podcast, and we did Halloween. We actually asked that question of each other. What if you put it on today in the cinema, what would they think of Halloween? And there was a bit of laughter, wasn't there, at a screening in Melbourne?
And the younger people there were apparently, laughing it up and laughing at how silly they thought some of the things were, and some of the older people in the audience were a little bit
Pissed off about it.
annoyed about that.
I bet.
But Scream probably doesn't get that because some of the stuff is comedic. So
Yeah.
it's
Sure.
all right to sort of get those laughs if you needed it.
I think the thing that would happen with it is because those 80 slashes aren't necessarily what they're seeing now. I think the thing that you would get when you go back, the kids would watch it and just say, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, what tropes? These aren't tropes that I see as much. Whereas with us, we're watching the Elm Streets, the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens, all that stuff fit, you know? So I reckon that would be the difference. Their style of scary movie is not the same as what we were seeing at the time.
Yeah.
So coming in at that point, we were just sort of the perfect window to get exactly what we got out of the movie, I think.
Definitely.
I think overall as a series, yeah, it comes down to, I think, that Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, they set up a great location. Like Woodsboro itself feels like a town lived in. I think those characters feel realistic, even if they do fall into your kind of typical slots of 90s teens.
Yeah.
But unlike these other horror slasher franchises that we really love, what series has the same three characters return to each one that you care about? You want them to continue to see their adventures. It's less about, I think, the kills. It's more about the characters and the twists and whatnot. And I think the first one's got Cracker Jack opening and an amazing ending.
Yeah.
And Ghostface takes a flogging at times. He gets he falls over, he gets hit with bloody vases, and it happens throughout the series. That was another big point of difference that I'd kind of taken before, but watching him again this time around, it was all it happens so often that I was like, that was another big point of difference that I didn't really notice as much the first time.
Yeah, it's not as
he's
easy
getting-
for him.
Yeah, he's getting kicked in the balls all the time, and he's winded and beat the shit out of
That's the end
him.
of my killing career. Someone kicks me in the pills, mate. I'm going straight down, not getting back up. I'm just taking my mask off again. I just fucking cuff it. I'm at it. Okay, well, look, obviously, we've run through those 4 films. Now, you said beforehand, I believe you haven't seen the TV show?
I have not seen any of the TV series, and I remember when I saw the commercials for it, I was super excited that they were actually going to make a Scream TV series. Then I saw The Mask, and I completely The Mask. We didn't talk much about the Ghostface mask, but god damn it, I
iconic.
wore that thing trick or treating like 6 years in a row.
Yeah,
But it's just iconic. Yeah, it's a great look, and when you switch that up, I don't know. I took huge offense to it, but I did understand that they make a TV movie or something using that mask fairly recently.
They made a what you'd call a 3rd season, which was totally, I guess, separated from the first 2 seasons. E.g., they didn't go with the same characters. They didn't bring anyone back, and they brought the killer. They gave the killer the Ghostface mask for that one.
Gotcha. Okay.
The first one was, look, the first season started okay. It actually started okay. It went down, your typical sort of route, and there was all secrets in the background, and there's this killer who's sort of they believe has returned from the grave, and all this sort of stuff. And it was okay for the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
But it just got this was produced by MTV, mate. So everyone was a fucking Calvin Klein model.
Yep.
And it just kept. It didn't take any chances either. There was one particular character that I think everyone liked, but there came a point where he possibly could have been killed, and it would have been a really cool sort of twist on things. They didn't do it, and the show just kind of got more and more kind of boring. It just kind of sort of went down the same road. Every single episode seemed a bit the same, and then I think by the end, the reveal of the killer was kind of like a little bit of a letdown. Second season was worse, and then it ended on like a Halloween special, which was kind of like, I know what you did last summer. I still know what you did last summer, and I was like, oh shit, I think we're finished here.
But I believe the 3rd season has been the most critically sort of reviled out of all of them.
Oh
So,
no.
I mean, it's got Paris Jackson in it.
Well, I saw the little 2-minute Halloween thing they put out with her, the little trick or treat sort of teaser. I looked at that and I thought, that's all right, but obviously not.
No, allegedly. I mean, I think the 3rd season only went for 4 episodes. It was basically over a couple of nights.
Oh
they
wow.
did it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it hasn't even been seen here in Australia. Like, it hasn't even been. Nobody's talked about, oh, it'll be on Netflix or whatever. It's just kind of disappeared. I think it just didn't quite, as you say, didn't cut the mustard. So it's kind of been pushed to the side.
Now, like the movies, is it a different killer every season?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
okay.
much.
Yep.
Without giving too much away, the first season sort of ends a little bit ambiguously, and then you sort of they switch things up for the second season, and
My
for the worse.
My favourite part of it was in the Halloween special. This girl that they've been following the whole time, she's always like, "Oh, you know, I've been burned so many times. You know, I don't trust anyone." Then some bloke just walks in and goes, "Yeah, he's a bit all right, bit good looking." She looks at him and goes, "Hey!" tells her his fucking life story in about 2 seconds. I'm like, "Yeah, look, you didn't really listen there, did you?"
Not learning your
own
lesson
advice.
there.
Steer clear of the bloke. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty average, I would say.
I'm not opposed to it to a show in general. I think
No,
maybe
no.
if it was on an FX or something like that, or Netflix were to take it up, it's fine. If you want to do a season where killer's different each season, I think that could work. It's just I don't know how to satirize today's current movies because it seems like the tropes have changed. Horror's a little more elevated. I mean, we still get movies like fucking Countdown, which is an app that kills you or some shit, but whatever. I don't know.
You're just giving me my next film to watch.
There we go. No. Oh boy. But yeah, I'm curious to see what Scream would look like in 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally different. It's a bit hard to satirise things like Get Out. they're
Yeah.
pretty clever,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you go back to
quality.
Scary Movie, do we get your mate?
Both get dicks in the air.
Marlon Wayans is the little girl from Hereditary or some
We
shit.
definitely go back to that. As far as I'm concerned. I don't know if you've seen that other slasher movie series called Slasher that's on Netflix.
I saw some part of the first season. Yep. And Harper's
Look,
Island. I remember that one.
Yeah, those two actually probably handled that stuff a little better than
better,
Scream. They probably had a little bit more time too. I think they were longer, like they were about 10 episodes or 12 episodes, whereas I think the Scream series is only like 8, maybe.
Yeah, but even then,
Even,
That
but
can be
yeah,
a detriment
they've got their warts too. Those
Yeah.
shows, like they've.
because you spend so much time with some of those characters, and you're just like, holy shit! You're like, if this was a slasher, you'd be gone in 20 minutes. But we've had 8 episodes with you.
Yeah.
yeah, we've.
I mean, I guess you look at it like you'd be going a kill every hour, essentially.
Yeah,
Because, I
pretty
mean,
much.
some of those are hours long. Yeah, one character off an episode or something like that.
I hunger for the days of like Friday the 13th film where you killed 25 people in 80 minutes. I like those days were gold.
Absolutely, yeah.
Has anyone actually seen the documentary as well?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's 2, I think. There's one, an A&E one, and there's another one. I don't know who did that. Was Still Screaming
Still
or something like that.
So I've seen Still Screaming.
Are they? Is it any good? Because I haven't seen it, but I know it's made by the same guys who made Crystal Lake Memories and
Yeah.
Never Sleep Again.
It's okay. I saw it a little while ago, but it's definitely not up there with something like Never Sleep Again or Crystal Lake Memories.
Yeah.
They got so much more content, obviously, to cover, and they speak to so many more people. So you just, you find so much material through that. Obviously, these ones only had. I can't remember whether Still Screaming actually covered Scream 4 or not. I think it might have actually been made before then.
It was before. Yeah, it was right when 4, I think, came out. Yeah, so we
Yeah.
haven't actually had one that included that either.
Yeah, so to devote a fair portion of your runtime to Scream 3, great.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
All bets
like,
are off.
like if you're a fan of the series, it's one of those things where you got to check it out. But it doesn't stick with you like something like. For me, Never Sleep Again is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to top something like
But those films also, they came from that era where you did things under the radar.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, the Friday the 13th one is piss funny because every 5 seconds somebody's talking about how, we were doing it away from the studio. We were fucking treating their actors like shit. All this stuff like, yeah, look, Scream hasn't got that luxury of telling those kind of stories and digging a bit deeper into that stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I kind of pulled away from it because I was kind of thinking it's just not going to be the same as these other ones that we'd seen, and I
Yeah,
don't
and it's
really
not-
care for the depth of those
Yeah,
ones.
it's still worth checking out just because Scream was such a big part of me getting into the horror movies and things like that. It was something that I had to check out. Although I haven't heard of this other one that you mentioned, the A&E one. So
Yeah, that one sticks more to Scream itself and kind of what happened after that. With the sequels, I'd be curious in a documentary that gets into what happened after Scream and how we got the late 90s, early 2000s boom of urban legends and Valentines and all them.
I think there's a few people. I think there's a few people who'd like to know where we got those films.
Yeah.
Oh, the urban
What a time
legend
to be
films.
alive.
God, I loved it. We watched them the other day. Shit ass, but I was loving it. I was loving being back on that.
Oh my gosh.
All right, well, let's get to some favourites. Okay, what is our favourite kill in the series? Personally,
got to be Drew Barrymore for me.
I was gonna say you kind of can't top that one. It's
Yeah.
almost
Just because it's so in depth, like it goes for ages, but the whole scene is just crafted like expertly. The phone conversation, the killer's never really better in the series on the phone than in that scene.
yeah.
The whole point of her being, you know, on the poster and then having the surprise of that happen, like, yeah, hard to top for me. I think it's got to be that one.
And I love that whole scene. It starts with him ringing up, sort of saying, you know, being kind of nice, even though there's just a hint of something's not right with this guy. But then when he says to her, I want to know who I'm looking at. And she goes, what'd you say? He's like, I wanted to know who I'm talking to. And then she hangs up, and as she's hanging up, he goes, don't you hang up on me. And then he rings back and just starts cutting loose, you know, getting right into her. It kind of builds that once again. It's kind of not comedic, but it's a little bit lighter to start with, and then suddenly it just ramps up this intimidation. He's really intimidating in that sequence. And then he cuts the boyfriend's guts out, and, you know, all that sort of stuff is really cool.
Which I never see. You never see. It's just a close up on his face, and then the next shot's a wide of his belly falling out. And I'm wondering who the hell just slit that and sprinted away, or what happened there.
You just kind of hear the whoosh, 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 and then that's it. They just
some hamburger meat falling out.
Hanging out. That's it.
But yeah, they set up her character so well, and you grow to really like her in just this short amount of time. Again, it helps that it's Drew Barrymore, so we have kind of that cultural affinity for her, but it's just so well shot, and the fact that it's out in the middle of nowhere, the parents even arrive, and that whole bit where she's getting dragged off holding the phone, they can hear it all happen, and then these goddamn supermen somehow string her up like 50 feet in the air like a goddamn scarecrow's played out.
The parents would run out, and he'd be going,
Here he is tying a scout's knot.
oh shit!
Yeah, exactly.
And I love the shot where she reaches up and grabs his mask, and then as she pulls it away, it's the knife, his hand.
great shot.
Really cool, sort of quick segue away from, you know, who it is. So
And we haven't even mentioned the horror stuff, like going into the little quiz, you know, he's talking about to her about the scary movies as genre fans. That was just that was tops.
yeah.
Yeah, and Wes Craven willing to laugh at himself and the franchise he created with Nightmare and everything.
The rest of the
Which is
shit,
pretty
doesn't she
good.
say?
Yeah, the
of the
first
series
one's
is
good, but the
rubbish.
rest sucked. Yeah. Including, I guess, New Nightmare, which came out the year before. So he wasn't too keen on that one, I guess.
What would you say would be the worst or the least favourite kill? I mean, there's probably a few here.
I think I've shown my hand.
Honestly, yeah, I was gonna say that may be the worst. Whoever smells the gas, because it also they were just talking in this room. It's not that dark, and he has to run to a separate room to try to find a lighter to somehow see what this thing even says. And they're all in there minutes before.
We're all leaving. No, I need to know what happens, he says, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you're a bloody idiot. Keep moving, mate. Yeah, that one's not good. I actually must say, although I do like the one where she gets caught in the dog door. I mean,
Sure, yeah.
From a purely physical perspective, A, that's not happening. B, when you turn up to the party a bit late, oh shit! Is there a girl snapped in half? Funny. Oh, I'm
The right house, you walk around the corner. Oh fuck! What's happened here?
Yeah, I know that the house was out in the middle of nowhere, and so the whole idea would be that everyone was already there, and half of them had already pissed off to go and see the Fonz hanging from the bloody hanging from the football goalposts. So
Nope.
he's not expecting to see it.
What would you say maybe is your favorite kill of 3? Because I tried challenging myself with this to think of one good kill in 3 that's not just to stab and run away. They're all the
Yeah, I
same,
think
and
they're
even the
all the
one that's
same.
different is the guy who gets thrown off the roof there. But
Yeah.
even his is similar to Sarah Michelle Gellar's in number 2.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
all terrible, aren't they? I think
There was really not a good one.
because Cotton Weary was a contender for my worst of the series. Like, it just had zero impact whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think maybe Jenny McCarthy was the best one, and only because I realised I wasn't going to have to spend another 60 odd minutes with Jenny McCarthy. That was about it.
I do like the meta bit about her. Why am I playing this character? She's 35 playing a 25-year-old. She only gets 2 scenes and is
Yeah.
killed second. That's exactly the way that is in the script.
And they also
but yeah,
they have the one really cool shot where she goes into the costumes, and then one of the masks, you can see it coming a mile off, but it still looks pretty cool.
Sure.
One of the costumes kind of leans down, and then you see the hands sort of slip out.
Yeah.
That was okay, but yeah, it's a pretty tough crop to choose.
I think that in terms of the entire franchise, it is a tough crop because it wasn't going for Jason style. Every 5 minutes, you're going to use a different weapon. You're going to rip, contort some bloke, and bend him over fucking backwards. That stuff was
Someone's head to
happening.
the size of a tennis ball or something like that.
smash some ladies in a sleeping bag
Yeah,
against some
that's
trees
right.
and stuff. Yeah. The first one, though, I
man.
think the most egregious kill is probably that Cotton Weary one in 3, just because it starts off with the guy coming into your house and blaring Creed, which would piss me off. Like, who got into my house and who's playing this Creed record? Oh, my God.
I am leaving. I hear that? No, that's it. I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd be saying to my missus, "We are finished. How dare you play this shit in here?" You're right, though. Most of them are just stabbings, and when it's because the series, that's what it's built on. The least favourite kills are probably pretty easy because there is no. It's not like Nightmare on Elm Street where you're going into a dream sequence and you can take some liberties with how it's done. It's not like Jason.
Yeah.
It's actually very much like Halloween. If you want to go with that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Halloween has a similar style in that he just uses a knife in a lot of cases.
Unless it's Rob Zombie and you're stomping faces,
Or if,
sawing people's heads off with pieces of glass and shit.
Jesus
Boy.
Christ.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's worst or best, but the Anthony Anderson knife through the head bit, that's a stand up and cheer moment. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that was not too bad. Not too bad.
Though I will say, yeah, because 4 does have a little more gore, I think, than the other ones. That
Yeah.
whole bit where that woman's like, the girl, Olivia, I think her name is, who's like disemboweled in her room or whatever.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
character's like holding her body up for everyone to see. Again, just pretty brutal anyway.
Yeah. What about our favourite characters? Do we have a favourite character?
Yeah, like for me, you can't really go past Sydney. The other ones sort of have their moments, but to varying degrees. Like Randy in part 1, loved him. Part 2, I was just sort of up and down. Like when he starts talking and delivering that dialogue in a British accent, I'm thinking, what's that all about? Like I could do without that.
He was perfect for Malibu's Most Wanted.
Yeah, but
That's right.
but even the ones when Sydney in part 3, when she takes down Roman by herself at the end, is kind of cool. Like she doesn't really have down moments like everyone else does because she's got to play it straight the whole way. She doesn't get the chance to say fuck Bruce Willis and all that good stuff. she kind of it's hard to go past her. I think
Yeah, and
set up
she's
such
a
strong
pretty
character
good,
in the first one.
as far as calling them final girls, but she'd be on par. She'd be right up there with your Laurie Strodes and these sorts of people because she has been through the 4 films. She's always been a strong presence in those 4 films. I do like Randy. Even at his
Yeah, I do too,
lowest,
yeah.
I actually kind of like him because he kind of feels like us, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
He's into the horror films. He knows all the rules. He knows all that stuff. Look, he's probably a bigger dickhead, although that's possibly debatable.
Yeah.
He's kind of a creep. He does ask the guy who's dating Sydney if he might have a shot at sleeping with Sydney. Then later on in the movie, Stu tells him, "Yeah, I think Sydney and Billy are upstairs." He's like, "I'm gonna go check on them." Like, I don't know what Randy's doing in his free time, but
Do we assume that the door was open a crack and he was going,
yeah, knock on it. Exactly. I don't know.
yeah, look, he is a bit of a creep. I just
And he
realised.
But
makes a
I do
comment in
like
the
him.
second one. He makes a comment in the second one about how he's still hanging around holding the flame for Sydney, and I'm like, oh man, that's real. that's probably the weakness in your character right there.
Actually, in a way, it would have been kind of cool to have him as the killer in one of them, because he kind of, you could play that off as he's warped by all these movies he's been watching, and he is also a bit of a cream. He's a bit.
You know what? Charlie sort of whips that out towards the end when, you know, he says he kills Kirby and he says, "Oh, 4 years and you notice me now," and it was super creepy. It was really weird. So I think if that had happened with Randy, it might have been a bit of a rough sort of ending to go with.
In a way, too, I actually liked the fact that they killed Randy in 2. It showed that they had a bit of balls. You kill a key character.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it took you by surprise.
Yeah, the rest of the series went totally away from that. You know, you could stab David Arquette 50 times. He was still going to survive.
He's still coming back. Yeah.
So,
Dewdrop. Yeah. I love his guitar theme every time he comes on screen. Do the bow now now.
Yeah, look, I would say it's definitely Sydney, but I didn't mind Randy. Like, I took Randy for what he was, and I enjoyed him. Except in 3 when he was on fucking videotape.
Yeah.
You could take his videotape and shove it up his ass.
yeah, exactly. I think if I'm removing Sydney from the equation, I think my favourite, I don't know why, but I think it's Gail, just because she's involved in some of the...
I thought you were going to say Anthony Anderson.
She's...
So, geez, you've done a 180 on the plate.
Yeah, I have. I've turned right around on him. But no, she gets a couple of funny moments. She's involved in some of the other cool moments, like, you know, she's getting belted by Sydney a couple of times. Her propensity to blow up and tell people to fuck off is always entertaining.
Yeah. Yep.
Other than that, Tatum was always the one that I really liked as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she was
Gail's great in 1
film.
and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Hayden Panettiere Kirby's the best part of 4.
Yep.
I think she's at least a fun character. Maybe not all believable that she would be slumming up with these geeks or nerds watching these goddamn movies. But, you know, it's wish fulfillment. I'll take it. And then, not that I like this character all that much, but watching it this time around, I feel really bad for fucking Jerry O'Connell, who's a really good boyfriend this whole time. Just a really sweet dude. And just because he's dating this woman gets shot on a cross. And it's like, what did this guy ever do to anybody?
Career high for Jerry O'Connell.
Oh yeah, well I don't know. Kangaroo Jack came out a few years after.
Kangaroo Jack, and carrying on like an asshole in Piranha was.
Oh, that's right. Oh, in Joe's Apartment. He's in Joe's.
Yeah, he's in Joe's Apartment. Totally agree. He's actually really likable in that role, and it's only a fairly brief role. Like he's not in it a great deal. But what he does is really good, and it is actually a bit sad to see him get shot. And he plays that. Kind of a letdown. He gets killed.
Yeah.
He plays that "I Think I Love You" scene like an absolute champion. I love it when he's stomping across the tables and he starts collecting notes. At one point, someone puts a note in his fucking pants, and he starts swiveling the hips and stuff.
Yeah, and I think Stu and Mickey kind of fall in the same category where I do find them entertaining. Both of them are slightly annoying at times, but they're both going so far over the top, and I think I just like those actors that they're entertaining to watch anyway.
And people would say Lillard is, I mean, I think Gibbo might have said that Matthew Lillard was a fucking pain in the ass or something like that when we watched the but I disagree. I actually find him kind of interesting because he's different. He's different to the others.
Yeah.
And so he sticks out as this kind of like... He seems to be part jock, part weirdo.
Yeah, he seems like he's so desperate for anyone to like him. So that's why it's kind of a sad, tragic... That's why his whole motivation really was to just go along with this, because Billy's his buddy and he wanted to impress him.
Exactly. But I kind of liked his performance too.
Yeah, I was a big fan.
And I do love his kill. Yeah, his kill, the TV on his head's pretty great.
Yeah.
It is.
Now, the least favourite character for me is the bloke with the camera on his shoulder. Robbie, I think his name is.
Mercer.
Oh, my God. My God. That is the lowest ebb of the entire series is him rambling on with his fucking camera on. Like, he just wanted to kick his ass.
That's why I thought you would have got a little bit of enjoyment in part 4 when Gale says, can we turn that off? And he's everything's, and she just goes, turn that fucking thing off. He was just. That's
the kind of character that it came across as kind of like arrogant. It came across as kind of like, look at how cool this is. That was part of the problems with 3 and 4 was as films. And this character falls into that, is we're cooler and smarter than we think we are.
Yeah.
We're actually not that smart,
He'd
Kinda
walked
sneaky
straight
out.
out of bloody Halloween Resurrection. That's where he should have been. One of those guys in the house.
Yeah, Michael Myers is a killer shark. I will say, well, Scream 4 is just filled with those characters who are assholes. Like, there's Alison Brie as her assistant, who, again, is kind of fun to
yeah,
watch,
gets
but
a couple
she's
of
just an
laughs.
asshole.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I guess, like Parker Posey in the third one,
Yeah.
who at least adds a little bit to the proceedings. I'll say one of my least favorite characters is Patrick Dempsey in the third one as Detective Kincaid. His whole bullshit was like, what's your favorite scary movie? My life.
Oh my God, that is just so bad.
Oh, McDreamy!
Oh, man.
Sort yourself out, mate. Oh, man, that was just... It's like they didn't know what to do with Dempsey. Again, he was strictly there as a red herring that may or may not have been involved in this. And it just took away... Because it was another subplot that you had to include.
Yeah.
What's happening in the investigation? Who gives a shit? Let's get back to
Exactly. Let's hang out with him and his little Ben Stillery assistant guy.
Like, get back to the
Partner,
set
yeah.
and go there. Don't worry about what the cops are doing. Because let's face it, the cops in these films are usually not doing anything. So, yeah, he was also another difficult character. Anthony Anderson, of course.
There was a lot of picks from
Oh.
three. Roman's got to be up there. I mean, the guy was barely even in the
Roman.
movie, and then when he comes out spewing all this stuff about his motivations and inserting himself into the story of part one, it was just an insult, basically.
Yeah.
So, hang on, can I just break this down? He set the ball in motion, correct?
Yeah,
For
so-
Billy
That's what I
and
hate the
Stu.
most about it all.
He
Yeah, they
had-
try to retcon the first one. He's
Yeah.
encouraging them along to do it, I guess.
Showing footage of
Maureen.
Billy's dad turning up at the hotel with Maureen, and he's like, I was the director. I sort of just showed them my film and set the pieces in motion. I'm like, far out.
What? Yeah, exactly. Where did he even come? Where was he living at this time? I want to see the movie that's him, the 4 years of him just like watching this whole shit go down.
The
And,
Roman Bridges story. I need to know how it all turned out.
Not only that, but
Yeah,
the whole
Rome-
time
oh, God.
prior to that, the whole time he's pissing and moaning about his movie. Like it's like he doesn't even want to be on Stab. It's like someone had him. He was under duress directing Stab, but it was all part of his grand scheme. It's like
yeah.
what?
A lot has got to fall into place to make all of that sort of stuff happen.
Yep.
And it's, as a audience member, even idiots like us, you're just sort of going, yeah, I can't buy into it. I can't buy into it
Yeah.
at all. And because he's actually only on screen for probably about 20 minutes, so this character has been the puppet master. He's Jigsaw to the
Yep.
entire series, yet he's only seen for a very, very small period of time.
Correct.
Bullshit.
Deputy Judy in part 4 was pretty bad too.
Yeah.
She was really annoying
Oh,
Bit
that's
of a
right.
non-event.
for a couple of scenes.
Mary
and then
Shelton, yeah.
comes back in the end to save the day, and yeah, she was pretty rough.
I would actually like to get a bit more info on what kind of production problems 4 might have had. Because now that we talk about some of the characters, I get this feeling that, maybe things were in place in an earlier version of the script that were then excised. Because she has a couple of scenes at the start, disappears
She
for a
goes
long
away.
stretch and then reappears.
Gets told that lemon squares taste like arsenic.
Well, she took that hard. she took that critique hard and decided to leave for a large portion of the film. But she then reappears for no apparent reason.
And not
So-
only that, but she's set up early as like an impediment to Sydney. Like she looks at Sydney as a suspect early on, and then she finds Sydney in the house with the dead body of her auntie. You think she's going to try and take her in or something. That never eventuates. And so it just becomes this... she becomes friendly with Gail. She doesn't impede Gail in any way. It's like, so what the fuck is she there for? Like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's certainly not one of my faves. All right,
Neither is Jill. Not a fan of Jill.
there's a lot of poor
Again,
characters in 3 and 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's probably got to
Yeah.
be, the pick is in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's
sure.
definitely. That's definitely. All right, well, let's finish up. What's your favourite line of dialogue?
Probably what's my favorite scary movie in my life.
P. Dempsey.
God, no.
He gets you every time.
Actors masterclass. I'd love to see an inside the actor's studio or something where they play that scene and then just start, just break it down for us.
What are you thinking? And he says, I was thinking about the paycheck. That's about it. My personal favourite, I got two. I really like when he rings her up in the first film and he says, if you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother did. Do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't. That sort of shit was really intimidating. Like, it had this menace to it. And then my other favourite is Randy saying, now, do you think now that Billy tried to mutilate her, she might go out with me?
Good God.
And now I realise the man was a it's only just come to me now. God. Yeah, it's a piss funny line, but yeah, look.
Yeah.
Admittedly, you'd probably say it too. Listen, mate, just cool off.
I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but yeah, Stu's whole bit with the phone there on the end is it's great.
Yeah,
Did you really
so
call
good.
the police? Because there's so much in that line. You can tell it's like he's still a teenager. He doesn't realize what the fuck he's just done. And like the ramifications are like everything's settling in his mind. Like, oh shit, I'm actually going to jail for all this. I don't know. That one, and you speak of intimidating lines. I do like the, what do you want? And he says, to see what your insides look like,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, that's
Like,
a good
oh
one.
shit.
Yeah, I think the same. It's like, for me, it's either got to be Stu's little bit, or it's the Drew Barrymore scene. I want to know who
yeah.
I'm looking at. It's one of the lines out of
Yeah.
that. I want to know what your insides look like. I think, the one for me, I just love the delivery of I want to know who I'm looking at. Just so calm and
Yeah.
collected.
And then he tries to
I
kind of
wanna know who
cover.
I'm talking to. Yeah.
But I also do like the one when he rings up and she thinks it's Randy. And he says, I'm not Randy.
Oh, yeah.
She
Yeah,
says, where are
that's
you?
because-
Oh, who are you? And he goes, the question isn't who am I? The question is where am I?
Yeah, that's another good
And he
one.
says, I'm on the front porch. That stuff is really cool. And that's why I think
There's
the first one is such a good movie, is because that shit is actually scary. It
Yeah,
kinda
there's a
feels
couple of
scary.
times I enjoy when Ghostface is mistaken for someone else, the whole bit there, and then I think in the fourth one he's like, this isn't fucking Trevor.
yeah. He ramps it up.
Yeah, he gets real pissed off by then.
He doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to play it cool. He wants to just get straight into it. Worst line. Take your pick.
I don't think it's a contest.
Take your pick down the stretch of the last two films, but fuck
Yeah,
Bruce Willis.
Obviously, my life. Fuck Bruce Willis.
I'm gay if that helps you.
Dave, that helps. Yeah.
Yep.
Couple of real gems there.
There's some real shit there, and in general, Ghostface is a poor imitation in terms of what he says on the phone in both 3 and 4.
Yeah.
None of it hits. None of it has any resonance. None of it holds any sort of tense, sphincter muscle puckering things.
There's one line specifically in 4 that you can tell they're trying to evoke the creepiness and the violence of the first one, where he says something like, "I'm gonna slit your eyelids in half, and then so you can't
so
blink
you
when I
can't
stab you in the
blink.
face."
That's right.
It's like, wait, what? What are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
That's getting too complex.
Yeah, it's like you lost me like a couple of sentences ago, bud.
Yeah,
Like,
you've gone from gutting you like a fish. That's clean, simple to I'm gonna cut your eyelids off. Okay, all right, mate.
Yeah.
I actually forgot one of my favourites. You're gonna howl me down, I'm sure, but I didn't really need to see Jay and Silent Bob in Scream 3. And he goes,
holy
"Hey,
shit!
it's that shit from TV. Bloody fucking Chuck." I was
This
laughing.
takes place in the Askew universe because it's Jay and Silent Bob. It's not even the actors.
that's
Like
it.
they're just those characters.
I laughed a lot harder than I should have when he yells out Connie fucking Chung. I was just like, "Yep,
And look,
that worked. That was worth it."
that kind of worked in 3. So did the cameo from Carrie
Carrie
Fisher.
Fisher, yeah, she was.
Those kind of
that's
things
right,
actually
yep.
worked because once again they were kind of skewing the whole Hollywood and some of this stuff that they were sort of setting up.
Yeah.
So those bits I didn't mind. In fact, in some of the reviews I read, they were saying these were the best bits of the movie. Jesus Christ, it's not that bad. It's bad. Like if you had to hold me to rights to watch Prom Night, the remake of Prom Night, or Scream 3, I will watch Scream 3
Yeah.
several times.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch Prom Night in a fucking blue fit.
No, I wouldn't even watch. What was Wes Craven's? I think his last one, or the one he did before Scream 4 was
My
My
Soul to
Soul to Take. Whew. Not good.
I'd watch Music of the Heart. My Soul to Take was trash. Like
That was bad.
I was interested to see what it was going to be like because it was him having another stab at a new sort of killer.
Yeah,
whole
in
idea
3D, no less.
Was it in 3D? Oh shit!
It was.
I saw it on DVD. So
Needlessly in 3D, yeah.
But I remember watching it. The first 10 minutes, just going. He's lost, buddy. He's lost his faculties. Was he actually involved in this? I remember sort of thinking maybe he's just a producer or something. But he wrote and directed it. It's like bloody hell.
Yeah.
What was he on?
Yep.
All right. I think that's the entire franchise in a nutshell. I think we've done all right with that. Brandon, thank you very much, mate. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. Hope we can do this again sometime.
Yes, we'd be definitely open to it. Maybe the Friday the 13th franchise. We can really,
Yeah.
we can really rip that
Yeah.
one apart. That's hours. That is hours of work.
That's where we
Days
go
of
from the
recording,
movie
yeah.
to the series. We need 10 episodes to break that shit down.
That universe is just crawling with assholes.
Holy. Oh my god.
Not to mention we've got there'd be an hour dedicated to the hygiene problems in Crystal Lake.
Easy.
You can do a whole episode on just that, like, redneck gross guy who's like licking the mannequin in his pot shed or whatever.
Talk about prequels. I need to know about where he was at
Yeah.
prior to Jason being around.
Yeah,
I think he's the real villain of that franchise. Yeah.
I think they just managed to sneak Leatherface into the series as well. That's-
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a
Jedediah
mismatch.
grown up or whatever, yeah.
Oh, well. Mate, look, thanks again, Brandon. We really appreciate having you on here. And if we can do it in the future, we'd love to. And if you're available in the future, we'd definitely like to do something else. So thanks again, mate. We really appreciate it. To everyone
Yeah, no
else,
problem.
thank you for listening. And until next time, take it easy, and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.